Last night I was tidying up this car, trying to make sure everything was in proper working order so the customer could take it for a little bit and then bring it back. And I took it for, or let it run for a while. While doing the AC recharge, I had to recharge the AC from doing a AC compressor, and there's a small leak underneath the car. So lifted it up on a jack outside because I had a different car in here at the time, and took a look. Turns out the oil cooler hose or line from the engine to the engine oil cooler on the radiator, which I have not added the aftermarket one yet. Turns out that hose is leaking, and it's actually leaking where the pan fitting gets crimped. It's leaking like right after it or something. There's a steady amount of oil coming out of it. So the cradle degreasing that I did, it was nasty when I had the cradle off of this car, and I assumed it was from the power steering leak that he had talked about. Now I'm starting to wonder if it wasn't the line from the get-go, and me maneuvering the lines, doing the piston in the car, probably aggravated it and made it worse. I did not do anything differently with the lines aside from moving them around, so I know it's not something that I did, doing an AN line incorrectly or something. It's probably just an old hose that cracked or fatigued somehow and finally is at its end. I had to spend a lot of time degreasing those hoses when I did the cradle too, and I just assumed it was because they're coated with nylon on the outside and the power steering was right above it, so I assumed the power steering was dripping on it. Well, it probably was actually leaking, so I'm going to address that now, and since the customer couldn't take it with him, which is, he's okay with that. He was here for other reasons anyway, and I was just like, well, maybe you could take the car. Turns out he can't. So it's okay, because now I get the opportunity to put the oil cooler in, the aftermarket oil cooler, and the fittings for that oil cooler, the reason I hadn't put it in yet, I didn't get the fittings yet, but they're supposed to show up today. In fact, they were saying it was scheduled for yesterday, so I know they're going to show up today, and if they don't, well, I guess I'll have the car over the weekend. It's Friday now, it's a beautiful morning, so I will get started on this. Okay, I just popped the first oil line off to let it start draining. The next step here is to start working on getting the other line off, and then basically just allow everything to drain as best I can. But I'm going to be replacing both of the hoses. I don't want to risk, I think I know which one's leaking, but I don't want to risk the chance of the other one leaking shortly after, so I'm going to end up replacing both hoses, which is convenient because I have to put the aftermarket cooler in, and that cooler, it'll allow me to customize the length without having to try and work with what I have. So it's a convenient thing that I have to do both lines now anyway. It'll allow me to make a cleaner looking job and get it done to look a little bit nicer for the customer. This is a reusable gasket. It's just like a little rubber ring thing. I replace them every so often, but for the most part, you can feel if they're reusable. This thing's got plenty of life left in them. That rubber will actually squish down and match the thickness of the metal, and then you can't reuse them anymore. So when I had this apart before, I took the time to make an extra bracket that will protect these hoses and the wiring harness from a pulley that's really close to them. And I used a metal zip tie to attach that bracket. That's why I'm breaking up the tin snips. So I zip tied those hoses and wiring harness to it. Now I gotta cut that zip tie, that metal zip tie, Okay, so I was trying to find some factory style bolts. I didn't have any of the length that I wanted. I did find this stainless bolt though, it's just a little bit longer. These stainless washers that I have are quite thick. Actually, I'll come up here. See, that's 4 washers, okay? So, I got 4 washers, and I got this one to spread the weight because the head of the other bolt that was in there has a kind of like a built-in washer on the head. It's not actually a washer, just a larger mushroomed out head. I forget what that's called, but anyway. This bolt is long enough that this washer and these 4 washers are equally as long, so it's going to be essentially the same length of threads that are holding the sway bar in, minus the thread and a half that it takes for the bracket to hold the oil cooler. So it'll pretty much be the same as if I were to just bolt the oil cooler up, only it's going to sit down 4 washers lower, so it'll keep it off of the fan motor. So it's still hitting on actually both of the fans. I'm going to take and do the washer thing on the other side too, in hopes that it'll bring it just enough to clear it. It's definitely, see, it's crooked too. I'm not liking that. I don't know why that is. The bracket's a little funny. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll use an even longer bolt and I have a goofy thing. Actually, I got it from the last car I worked on. That's a big block spacer. That actually should level it out. Okay, I think I found what's the perfect combo here. If you watch my other videos, this piece here came off of another Corvette from the torque tube that somebody had added because they had too long of a bolt. And this bolt here happens to be the perfect length. If I put this on here, it'll come to there, right? And if I put this guy right there, see, it's just a little bit longer than the other bolt, which is perfect because what that allows is for the extra room for that cooler bracket I'm adding. The other one, it's not going to hurt to be just a hair shorter, just a real small amount shorter. But to have it just a hair longer, that's awesome because now I know I'm going to have full thread contact. And I'm going to achieve dropping that cooler down this much on that side, which is about right for how crooked it was and how far or how badly it was hitting those fans. Okay, so from your view now, instead of that, which was previously sitting up when I had it bolted on, is now fairly level. It's almost perfectly level. So apparently those brackets, they don't line up quite as they should. And I'm going to pull you off, show you a glimpse of where I was talking about as far as what was interfering and getting too close. It happens to have just enough of a gap now that it won't cause an issue. Okay, you can see it comes really close to that harness, to the fan there. Give you a little bit further away view. And then these motors here, I'll see if I can get you up there. So I can't physically see it myself, but I can feel it. See that motor there? Comes really close, but it does not touch. Though it looks like it might be touching. There. It's actually not touching. It's really hard to see that, but there is a little bit of an air gap there. We'll go to this side. See if I can get you a good view. There, you can see that one's got plenty of room. So now I got enough clearance. This is that spacer I'm talking about to drop it down. And then here is the little bit of a washer. So another thing I want to show you while I'm here is you can see where the fittings are going to go once I get them in the mail on the cooler itself, and then where the fitting on the radiator is. That is a tight corner to make. So I'm going to use hardline to go from whichever end of the radiator I do to the cooler, and then I'm going to use the hose to go to the cooler and to the radiator for the engine side of things. here's after the cut. Nice, clean, good looking cut. Just use a chisel, cold chisel, axe, knife, anything. Give it a whack with a hammer. I should probably buy one of those big cable shears slash hose shear things, but this works so good, I guess I just don't take the time to actually purchase one. Tube nut fittings for the hard line. I'm going to do that next. Alright, so we got the fitting there, the main block there, and then we have the two fittings. And I'm gonna have to get a little bit different angle here. You can see the hoses with all the zip ties I just put on to make sure that whatever happens they don't come loose and go close to the header. Obviously there's a huge distance between that and the header. That's the advantage of tucking them under or between the mount and the oil pan there. So they run forward. I'm going to have to get them underneath that bracket there next, and then zip tie them to that bracket. That's the bracket I was talking about earlier where I had to break that zip tie off. And then I have a 180-degree end on here, turning it around. Fittings similar to this are what are on their way. They still have to get here, but you can see the one elbow there. That goes to the hard line that I made. That's going to go right there as soon as I get the fitting. And then this guy here goes right on there like that. So here's the fittings installed. You can see it right there. Right there. They are similar to this guy, only these threads are longer. They stick out maybe even a little further than this by about one thread, but on this end. And so it's got a lot more bite. I don't like this one. This one doesn't have very much bite. This is meant for like a fuel pressure regulator or something of that nature. This oil cooler, I was not comfortable with the lack of threads going in there, so I put a different one in. Here is a little bit further away view of what the oil cooler looks like. Get the light there. There we go. A better view for you, give you a little bit better angles. So nice clean setup. Should last a long time and cool the motor a lot better than it was cooled before. Well, this car is complete. I just got the fittings, I put them in. I gotta lower it down and fire it up. It'll be good to go. Take it for a little drive, make sure nothing else shows up. Okay, so I just pulled this drain plug a little bit ago. It's had some time to drain, you can see that. The other drain plug over there is another one I'm going to have to pull in a minute. But this is the LS7 I just got done building with the white and black valve covers and such. Okay, so I just got the drain plug out. This is untouched aside from the head of the plug. That metal there is actually a small amount compared to most fresh builds. Like, I've done several motors where it was a short block or long block put in, you know, factory OE style stuff, and I've seen a lot more metal end up on it. This is actually a very minimal amount, so that's a good sign. That means the motor is healthy and doing good. Next I will be cutting apart the oil filter as well. Action! Damn you. Alright, so we got the oil filter off. We got a fancy cutter, thanks to one of my customers that bought one. We're going to take this filter and cut it open and take a look at inside, look at all the pleats and see what kind of material we find inside of them. Just thinking. Hey, the hell with this aluminum frame. Here. Shine light. I'm gonna pour it out. Actually, I'll take the rag. I'm doing with this here. See a little normal ring dust.
Should bring the camera over, or turn the when you do the filter so you can see the.
I can't even get the damn thing apart. I'm gonna grab a screwdriver. It's stuck. Bring the light over this one. A lot of times this is where you'll see a good majority of it, not even in the pleats necessarily. Right at the bottom of this. See that color? That's dust. And there's a few small little things in there. Nothing large or catastrophic. Now we're going to take this and we're going to cut that apart.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to.
I can't even get it apart. So apparently XP has stepped up their filters. Oh wow.
That is a different material.
That's actually metal screen. So they really stepped up their filter game.
Well, if anything, you're showing the difference between a regular Wix and an XP, I guess.
Alright, so I guess we have to do this differently. We'll just have to look in between each pleat. And there's one little speck in there. I don't know if you can see that. Nothing in there. Nothing in there. It's looking pretty darn good. I see one little. Here's one. Pull it out here. Shine right here. See that little. I don't know if you can see that or not. I just got dripped
It's like a
out of
sliver,
it.
yeah.
There's one. It's looking pretty good, but I do want to show you this. This is a screen that normally isn't in here. I was having a hell of a time cutting this filter open. Usually I can just run a knife or a razor blade or whatever around the paper and it has no problem, but I wasn't able to cut it. Reason being is because of the screen. It's actually a metal screen in here. This is a Wix XP filter. I was actually impressed with the fact that they have this in here. That means this screen material, this filter element material, is not going to collapse under any pressure because it's got plenty of strength. I also noticed the can thickness is a lot thicker than most filters. So they have stepped up since their last one. The last one of these I had apart did not have this mesh. They must have changed company operations or management or something, because this is definitely a lot better quality than they used to have. So I'm very impressed. Yeah, that looks good. There it is, the end of my day. Two very healthy sounding vets. Yeah, those sound good. Anyway, end of my day today. Two very healthy sounding vets. Now I gotta finish the last one. Those two are finally done. Hopefully they'll have a fairly trouble-free summer. And but it is a race car, so race car things, they tend to have problems, but hopefully we can keep them from happening this summer. At least one clean summer for them. So should be a good time this year. I'll be having quite a few cars out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Power Cruise especially. If you guys haven't heard of Power Cruise or been to Power Cruise, that is one of the best events that you could possibly go to. Even as just a spectator, it is very fun. Lots of entertainment. It's at BIR. It's quite a good time. So on that, I will be signing out for the day. And like, share, please spread the word, and I'll keep videos coming.